Ethos, pathos, and logos. If it's all Greek to you, well, that's because it is. What do these Greek terms mean, and how do they relate to the study of English? And most importantly, how can we use these terms in language and literary analysis? Stick around because that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. And make sure that you watch till the very end because I'll also be revealing a bonus term. Ethos, pathos, and logos are terms first introduced by Aristotle in his famous treatise Rhetoric, which outlines his theory on the art of persuasion. Together, ethos, pathos, and logos are the key pillars of rhetorical appeal, i.e., they are the elements that make our words convincing to others. So in a nutshell, here's what the three terms mean. Ethos refers to persuasion based on establishing personal credibility, which traditionally would be reflected in the speaker's high moral standards, and hence the etymological similarity between the words ethos and ethics. Now, over time, the scope of what contributes to this impression of credibility expanded. So instead of necessarily convincing someone just because you're virtuous, you can also appeal to ethos by being intelligent, knowledgeable, and experienced about your topic. Now, with pathos, persuasion is achieved by inspiring emotions in your audience. So if you're able to make your listener or reader feel something in response to your words, then that's you successfully appealing to pathos. It's important to note that while the word pathos reminds us of pathetic, which here means pity in the classical sense, the scope of emotions that relate to pathos is all-encompassing and goes beyond mere pity or sympathy to include anger, fear, joy, confusion, you name it. And finally, there's logos, which is persuasion based on sound reasoning and argumentation. Unlike ethos or pathos, which relate to personality and emotions, an appeal to logos is an appeal to the mind, which means that your words must activate your audience's critical thinking and have them conclude that you too are a decent critical thinker. To clarify then, with ethos, it's about establishing the speaker's credentials, whereas with pathos and logos, it's more about inspiring the audience's ability to feel and think. Now, before we move on to some examples, one important note. While we tend to associate rhetoric with speech and oration, ethos, pathos, and logos aren't just limited to speeches and can actually be present in any text. Now, this includes non-fiction genres like speeches, opinion editorial articles, and letters, as well as literary genres like novels, poetry, and plays. As long as we're dealing with the use of words, there is the potential for ethos, pathos, and logos to appear. So instead of giving you examples of ethos, pathos, and logos from speeches, which I've written an extensive blog post about, and you can find that in the link in the description below, I'm going to explain three literary examples of ethos, pathos, and logos in this video right now. For instance, the opening to Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde is actually an appeal to ethos. Why? Because we're told that the key observer in this incredible tale is Mr. Utterson, who is a good-natured lawyer that everyone likes and trusts. This is important for Stevenson's framing of Jekyll and Hyde's good versus evil dynamic, because between these polarizing forces, we need an impartial view to moderate and focalize for the reader a series of superhuman, unbelievable events, like the metamorphosis of Jekyll to Hyde towards the end of the novella, which Mr. Utterson will witness for himself. So by establishing the protagonist as a trustworthy character, Stevenson reassures us that we're being given a truthful account of something that we'll likely find too incredible to believe in the first place. To spot pathos, all you need to do is to pick up a copy of any tragedy. Othello, Macbeth, Hamlet, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, etc. The eventual suffering and death are engineered in ways that always inspire feelings of pity and fear in us. And that is, after all, the point of catharsis, which is integral to the workings of dramatic tragedy. But we can also see pathos in fiction, and a good example of this would be Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. In Star 4, Scrooge asks the ghost of Christmas yet to come to show him, quote, some tenderness connected with a death. And he's presented with the death of Tiny Tim, the sweet but sickly son of Bob Cratchit, Scrooge's poorly paid clerk. The mix of grief and anguish in Dickens' descriptions makes us feel sorry for the Cratchit family and reinforces both Scrooge's and our sense of guilt over the economic exploitation of those who are less fortunate. Comes from William Golding's novel Lord of the Flies. In chapter 5, titled Beast from Water, Ralph the leader faces the imminent collapse of order among the boys on the island. To remedy the situation, he decides to deliver a speech grounded in reason and logic, hoping to appeal to the group's rationality. First, he argues for the need of assemblies as a constructive platform for discussion. Then he champions for the adoption of fire on the island, which he calls the most important thing. He uses rhetorical questions and hypotheticals to present why that is the case. For example, he asks, how can we ever be rescued except by luck if we don't keep a fire going? Is a fire too much for us to make? But alas, we know that by this point, passions and emotions, not reason and logic, are what appeal to most of the boys, which is why we will eventually see the absolute disintegration of order on the island. So I promised you guys at the start of this video that I will also be sharing a bonus term. So here it is. It's kairos. Like ethos, pathos, and logos, kairos is another rhetorical appeal, but it relates to time. Specifically, it is an appeal to immediacy. So if you've ever received any marketing emails telling you to sign up now or to buy something on a limited time offer, that's all appealing to kairos. Because the message is that there is an optimal time frame within which you should take action and benefit. That's also why lots of advertisements and marketing collaterals make use of kairos in their copywriting. It tends to be less prominent in literature because it usually requires immediate reciprocal action from the reader or the audience. But reading a poem, a book, or watching a play are mostly more drawn-out, passive experiences. So that's it, guys. I hope this video gives you a clear explanation of the key rhetorical pillars as well as how they are reflected in literary works. Don't forget to click the thumbs up button below and subscribe if you found this video helpful in any way. And also do leave me a comment below with your thoughts and suggestions on future video content going forward. And again, if you want to check out my blog post on examples of ethos, pathos, and logos in speeches, make sure that you find the link to my blog post in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!